We played this the other day because somebody requested it. We hadn't played it in a long time, and then since then, we've had a lot of other people here ask if we would play this song tonight. We've only ever put it out on vinyl on a 7-inch.
Okay, so my name is Jane. I'm from Kanjian Music, and it's really great that you made it and come to China. There's not that many foreign bands coming, so we're very happy
We're stoked
to see you here.
Thank you.
What are the first impressions of China, Shanghai, Beijing? What are the first impressions?
Shanghai seems like the city from the future. When we were walking around last night, looked at the skyline, everything was lit up.
Yeah, the architecture, everything's so impressive from the Great Wall to now. Just been a common thread of just, China just building an amazing building architecture. It's unbelievable. All of us are obsessed with it. We love it.
I see, cool. Let's talk about your new album. I know that for Supermodel, the album before, you went to Morocco for travel, for inspiration. Did you do anything similar this time?
This time we didn't really have to go anywhere because there's so many things to write about that was happening in our very own country. So I feel like the year was so explosive with like news and politics and just a lot. There's just a lot happening that we stayed in LA for the biggest part of it, and really let the stories come to us. We didn't have to seek anything out.
Talking about Sacred Heart members, who are these people? So Sacred Heart Club members, who are these people? Who can become the member of Sacred Heart Club?
Well, first you gotta get a cigarette burn on your arm. I can give it to you. I'll pass it on. The idea behind the Sacred Hearts Club was really started with thinking about people in history that have lived life outside of societal norms. So people like Da Vinci, people like Patti Smith, people like Bukowski or Hunter S. Thompson, and really kind of just like looking at those people and like really saying like, okay, like what is the most beautiful parts of life, without boundaries? Because I feel like we're raised to live within like so many rules and regulations, whether it's from our parents or whether it's from school or whether it's from religion. That you can grow up sometimes being stuck in a box and be too afraid to explore outside of it. And I think like looking at those people, it's like they weren't afraid to explore, to go anywhere, and to try anything. And because of their journeys, they would come back with these like artistic treasures that people had never seen before. And so I think that was kind of like, I guess, like the basis for this, kind of like really kind of admire that and really try to like let creativity be the main force behind this record.
What's your personal favorite song from the album? Almost everybody's asking this question, but
I think for me, it's always changing. You asked me yesterday, I would have sent Lotus here. Today, it's Pay the Man. Just played that so much. It was feeling good.
I think for me, it's Lotus here right now too.
okay.
I think for me, it's like probably sit next to me right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about Sit Next to Me, the idea of the video is really cool, very amazing to fans and other people who admire you and your music. To put it into the never-ending Instagram feed. What's your attitude towards social media? Do you like it? Do you think it's a bad or good thing? Are you addicted to social media? What do you think?
I think it's all things. It's like there's like really good parts about it, and there are bad parts. Just like life, you know what I mean? If you overindulge yourself in like eating too much good food, that's not good for you either. So it's like, I'm definitely. I put it down for a year, stepped away from it to like really kind of like look at it and decide like if I wanted to partake or not, and then I jumped back in. And now I'm addicted. But
it's an easy thing to be addicted.
Yeah, for sure. Which is kind of why the video for Sit Next to Me that's like why we made it like that. That it's like I feel like the way that our brains are now receiving information it's like, especially online, it's like you can, you know, see like a puppy like doing a dance, and then you can like read something in the news about something that happened like in the Middle East, and then you can like, you know, look at like an art gallery and see what showing they have that day, and like and then look at like a cookbook, and like there's just so many different things coming in at once that, you know, it's like it's very it's like sensory overload, but in also a good way. It's like you're never bored, just always consuming. And so I think like that video is kind of a interesting take on consumption, on human consumption, you know.
I agree. It's switching pretty fast.
Yeah.
For me, Foster the People is always the band that's rising the problems of young people, millennials generation, like starting from your first song, Popped Up Kicks, and Supermodel, you had Are You What You Want to Be, and in this album you have Doing For Money. So do you feel like you're actually the voice of the generations? Does it happen naturally, or it's something that you're like chasing the trends and thinking maybe we should talk about this thing or sing about that thing?
I mean, I think we're just constantly reacting to what's going on around us, you know, and I think that that's like the world. We're living in such an interesting time. I think we're living in the most interesting time in history, you know, the digital age, because it's like it's exponentially growing, you know, like this. It's like if you like start with like, you know, the Stone Age back here, it's like thousands of years before it started to even go up a little bit. And now we're like straight up. And so it's like the world is just constantly evolving. And so as an artist, it's like, you know, I think there's never a lack of things to write about in response to that, you know, and watching like the disparity with like classism and how like politics as well, like, you know, we're looking at, there's so many people on the planet that there's like, you know, food shortages happening and water shortages, and politicians are at the top, you know, getting super wealthy and creating all these laws for people to live within, and, you know, we're getting like patted down at airports with like digital things getting implanted in our skin. There's just a lot to like think about, you know, and dissect. And so I think, you know, for us to kind of stay in that system and dissent and rebel in the right ways, but do it in a way that's still welcoming for other people to kind of join in with us, you know, and put a voice to those feelings. I think that that's something that for us as artists, it kind of turns us on.
What is each of you, like, what is the strongest recent art impression? I mean, it can be music, literature, painting, music, anything. What was something that you're like, wow, and like something has changed, you know, inside of you?
I still think that my favorite albums, I think the album is the highest art form, like that and in a film, I think. So, you know, the first time I listened to Magical Mystery Tour when I was a kid, I think that's probably the most profound experience I've ever had listening to an album.
I see.
I think for me, just watching Blade Runner, like the new Blade Runner, there's just something so beautiful about the way it was shot and the way that it was lit and just how it looked and how it felt. I mean, it didn't necessarily like make me psychologically like reapproach philosophically, but aesthetically I took something from that.
Yeah, I think what Oliver Eliasson is doing, he's an artist, a visual artist and installationist. I think what he's doing is incredible. He's bringing a lot of awareness to climate change also through his installations, and I think it's amazing. That's what I'm into.
I've been a bit of a bookworm lately. I didn't read a lot growing up, so I've had a bit of an obsession with reading lately. And I'm actually reading the Leonardo da Vinci biography right now, which is just incredible. I mean, he brought it up earlier. There's a lot of those things about him that I think I connect with a lot. And a lot of artists, modern artists, like I think we get a lot from what he, just the way he lived his life, and he was always outside, but a lot of just being purely himself, you know, not afraid to kind of challenge what was going on at the time. So yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I agree. He was a pure genius, I'd say. The question about the young musicians, because at the moment there are so many music platforms that are invading the internet, and there is so much music content that you don't even have the lifetime to listen for all of it. How do you think the young artists should stand out? What's the best way to approach people? I mean, you've experienced that. You became famous because of the content gigs were just online, and what would you say nowadays? Because it's now 7 years after the release of the song, and there's much more music platforms. What would you recommend for young music artists?
I mean, I think first of all, like if you're going to be a young artist, you have to throw everything else out the window. You can't have a backup plan. You have to figure out how to survive, even if that means you're just eating like the cheapest food you can possibly afford to be able to have to work the least amount of hours at a normal job, so you can just focus everything into your art. And then after that, I think if you can establish that, then it's finding your voice, your identity. Who makes you you? What do you want to say? And how is it different from what else is out there? And then after that, I think you have to look at culture and see where culture is moving and figure out how to paint your identity in a way that people can understand, that's going to be modern and not something derivative from something that's been there before. And I think that that's the hardest part, is to distinguish yourself, like find your identity and distinguish yourself, but then also dress it up in a way to where you can sell it to people, to, you know, not sell it monetarily, but to where people will understand it. And if you look at like the high art world, I feel like people that do like high art or you know like stuff in you know museums are geniuses at selling people on their vision, you know, and it's all about the description of what they're doing half the time that makes you appreciate what they're actually doing, because sometimes you can look at a canvas and it's just a white canvas with a line drawn across it, and you're like, well, anybody could have done that, but it's like their description of it, of where it came from and what they're trying to tell you, it's like they're creating an entirely different philosophy in how you can think about the universe or about art or about the world based on that one little line that drew across the painting. If you can sell somebody on what you're doing, then, you know, that's like, you know, it's like, look at what Warhol did, you know, and it's like he had talent, like he did things, like he could do things, but I mean, compare him to like someone like a Rembrandt, like the dude, you know, he wasn't like a fine artist by any means, but he taught the world how to see differently, you know, and that was his art. So it's like, yeah, say those three things.
That was the recipe from Mark.
Okay.
Can you say something to our followers of Kanjian music, to Chinese people? What do you think about China? Some wishes, anything? Kanjian, right. Yeah.
Hey guys, Kanjian Music, we're so happy to be here talking to you right now in Shanghai. You know, it's our first time in China. Everybody's been so welcoming, and you know, it's been pretty cool to be over here, being able to see your country. So hopefully we get to see you in the next few days. We've got a few shows left, and I don't know when the next time we'll be back is. Hopefully soon. You know, bring us back soon. We'll play here again. Otherwise, catch us in the next few days.